Hey, HR wants to talk to you. Do you have 5 minutes?
Oh, man. Just hearing you say that, I mean, my heart rate literally just spiked. And I know we're recording a deep dive right now, but my fight or flight response just completely flooded my system with adrenaline.
Right. It's a universal trigger.
Yeah.
I mean, it really doesn't matter if you've done absolutely nothing wrong. Like
hmm
your code is clean, your timesheets are in, you haven't even spoken to a human being all week.
Exactly.
But the moment that message pops up, your brain just instantly opens the archives. You start sweating over, I don't know, an expense report from like 8 months ago or some sarcastic comment you made in a Slack channel that maybe didn't land.
Oh, or the ultimate nightmare, right. Start wondering if someone finally found out about that time, you bypassed the change advisory board and just pushed a hot fix straight to production on a Friday afternoon.
Huh. Okay, to be fair, pushing to prod on a Friday, that isn't really an HR meeting. That's a career-limiting event that you have to explain to the CTO.
Fair point, yeah.
But the physiological reaction is identical. You just get that empty Teams calendar invite. No description, no context whatsoever.
Just a time and a link.
Yeah, just a blank space where the agenda is supposed to be. It is literally the corporate version of a horror movie soundtrack.
It really, really is. And, well, unpacking that panic is exactly our mission for today. We are taking a comprehensive look at modern corporate IT culture, specifically how we all interact with human resources, management, and, feedback loops in general.
Which is so needed.
Yeah, we're going to break down the psychology of why we panic so much, the actual hard legal realities of what HR does, and, most importantly, how to navigate these conversations like a seasoned pro.
Because if you work in tech long enough,
Ah.
you are absolutely going to get that empty calendar invite. It's just a matter of time. And to understand why it triggers us so badly, you kind of have to look at how IT professionals are conditioned to think.
Right, the mindset.
Yeah, we are trained like almost at a neurological level to hunt for anomalies and respond to incidents. You just monitor dashboards all day. So if an unexpected notification pops up or an urgent unscheduled meeting just appears,
It's a critical infrastructure issue.
exactly.
Yeah.
It almost always equals a disaster. A database is locked, a server is down, or we have a massive security breach.
I love that framing. It's brilliant because you're taking that incident response mindset and just applying it directly to social dynamics. An unscheduled HR call feels exactly like a priority one outage.
Yeah.
Like your internal monitoring system just flashes completely red.
And the lack of data makes it so much worse. I always think of this one anecdote that goes around IT forums constantly.
Mm.
An engineer gets a 30-minute empty invite from an HR business partner.
Oh, I know this one.
Right. The engineer's manager is just mysteriously offline. The team lead isn't answering any messages. It is an absolute information vacuum.
Which is just the perfect storm for catastrophic thinking.
Exactly. So what does the engineer do? They spend the next 25 minutes furiously updating their LinkedIn profile.
Oh, of course they do.
But they don't publicly turn on the green open to work badge, obviously, because doing that before you're officially fired is a total rookie move.
Right, you can't be that obvious. You just quietly polish the bullet points.
Yes. You tweak the bullet points. Then the time comes, they finally join the video call, sweating, heart is just pounding.
Yeah.
And the HR rep gives this huge smile and says, "Hey, congratulations. You've been selected to mentor our new graduate hires."
Ah, wow. But honestly, at that point, the psychological damage is entirely done. Like the employee is just sitting there with a resting heart rate of 160 beats per minute.
They are vibrating out of their chair. The HR rep is happily chatting about mentorship, and the engineer is just focusing on not passing out.
And that physiological hangover, I mean, that lasts all day. Your cortisol levels don't just magically drop just because you got good news, which really forces us to look at the underlying dynamic here.
Yeah. Why do our brains immediately jump to the worst case scenario?
Exactly. Why do we assume termination or discipline? It points to this really fundamental conflict in how HR is branded versus how it actually functions in reality.
Oh, the branding is incredibly aggressive right now. You look at basically any modern tech company, and the HR department isn't even called human resources anymore.
No, definitely not.
They're the people and culture squad or the employee experience team. The internal messaging is overwhelmingly, we are your advocates, we are your safe space.
But the structural reality, and man, this is a really hard pill for a lot of professionals to swallow early in their careers, is that human resources is a risk management function of the business.
Right.
They are paid by the company. Their budget comes from the executive team, and their primary directive is to protect the company's assets and ensure strict legal compliance.
Which creates a massive, inherent conflict of interest for you as the employee. If HR is paid to protect the company, then in any kind of interpersonal dispute between you and your manager, HR's safest operational bet is just to neutralize the liability.
Always. They are not your therapist.
Not even close.
And this is the trap that so many people fall into. Let's say you're frustrated with a really difficult boss. The manager is micromanaging you, communication is terrible, and you're just incredibly stressed out.
Yeah, a super common scenario.
Right. But if you schedule a meeting with HR just to vent or complain about your boss, you are making a massive strategic error. Because from HR's perspective, you've just taken a personal frustration and officially logged it as a business liability.
Yeah.
Their next move isn't to comfort you. Their next move is to open an inquiry and talk directly to your boss.
I've seen that play out, and it rarely ends well for the person who complained.
Yeah.
You elevate the drama, and suddenly you are viewed as the disruptive element on the organizational chart.
Exactly.
You could literally be the most brilliant back-end developer on the floor, but if you let your personal drama bleed into the boardroom, you just become a liability.
And, that concept of liability extends directly into corporate social events, too, like the classic team happy hour.
Oh, man, the happy hour.
Building relationships with your colleagues is essential, right? It builds trust. It makes the actual work go a lot smoother. But the real danger zone is that second or third martini.
The blur between the professional and the personal.
Yes. Because people let their guard down. They start gossiping or complaining about leadership, or worse, they start making inappropriate comments. And they just think, well, we're off the clock, we're at a bar, it's just work friends.
But employment law really doesn't care if you were at a bar.
It doesn't care at all. If you say something that crosses the line into harassment and it makes its way back to the office, HR must act. Not to punish you because they're mean, but because legally, if they ignore it, the company can be sued for fostering a hostile work environment. They literally have to protect the entity from you.
Right. But I think, we need to balance the scales just a bit here. Recognizing HR as a corporate shield rather than your best friend, it doesn't mean they're the enemy.
No, absolutely not.
Because they manage the lifeblood of your career infrastructure. Talent development, processing compensation, executing family and medical leave, FMLA. They are the only utility in the company equipped to handle those functions.
That is a very vital distinction. You absolutely need them to navigate your benefits or FMLA or internal mobility. So the takeaway isn't to, boycott HR. It's just to understand the rules of engagement. You interact with them purposefully with a really clear understanding of where their loyalties lie.
Which becomes an incredible advantage if you ever do actually find yourself in a disciplinary meeting. If you walk into that empty calendar invite and it actually is bad news, knowing the operational mechanics of HR completely changes your defensive strategy.
It changes everything. Because if you know they are building a case for the company, you can stop reacting emotionally and start acting tactically. Let's look at the actual legal realities of a disciplinary meeting in the private sector. The biggest mistake people make is acting like they're in a television police procedural.
Oh, it's amazing how many people think they have Miranda rights in a corporate conference room. They think they could just cross their arms, refuse to speak, and demand an attorney.
Yeah, but employment lawyers constantly emphasize that in the private sector, doing that is an incredibly fast way to just get yourself fired.
Because you're an at-will employee.
Exactly. Unless you work for a federal or state government, you do not have constitutional protections against self-incrimination in an HR meeting. It is a business inquiry. Refusing to participate or answer basic questions isn't taking some principled stand. Legally, it's classified as insubordination. They can terminate you on the spot for refusing to communicate.
Wow. Okay, so if you can't plead the fifth, and obviously you shouldn't just spill your guts, what is the actual play? How do you survive an ambush meeting where you're being accused of, say, underperforming?
The ultimate pro move here is to treat it exactly like you are gathering requirements from a hostile software vendor. You say as little as possible, but you extract maximum information.
I love that. Gathering requirements.
Right. So if a manager slides a piece of paper across the desk and says your sprint velocity has been unacceptable, you don't get defensive. You don't argue the data in the room. You sit back, you keep your tone entirely neutral, and you just say, interesting. Can you tell me a little more about how you're measuring that?
Interesting. Tell me more. That's brilliant because it forces them to do the talking. It forces them to put all their cards on the table while you are just observing the data.
And once they finish explaining, you execute the second phase of the strategy. You say, I appreciate you bringing this to my attention. I really want to give this the serious thought it deserves. Can I review these metrics and follow up with my response in an email?
And they'll almost always agree to that, right? Because
Yeah.
HR loves a paper trail.
They absolutely do. But it works completely in your favor. It allows you to escape the room, you let your cortisol drop, you review the documentation later when you aren't in a total fight or flight mode, and then you craft a rational, emotionally detached defense.
Exactly. Now, there is a physical component to these meetings too, right? Often they'll present you with a performance improvement plan, a TIP, or a formal disciplinary write-up, and they will literally demand that you sign it right there.
Oh, yeah, and this is where people really panic. They think if they sign it, they are confessing to everything on the page.
Right.
And to be fair, if you just blindly scrawl your signature at the bottom, opposing counsel could absolutely argue later that you agreed with the assessment. But you also can't flatly refuse to sign, again, because of that insubordination rule.
So what do you do?
The legal mechanism to protect yourself is a very specific phrase. Right next to your signature, you write, as to receipt only, rebuttal to follow.
As to receipt only, rebuttal to follow.
Wow, that is such a powerful tool. It legally acknowledges that, yes, a human being handed me a piece of paper while simultaneously preserving your right to contest every single fact printed on it.
It creates a legal firewall. It's brilliant. Now, speaking of legal firewalls, there is a massive misconception in the corporate world about reporting bad behavior. Right, the hostile work environment stuff.
Yes. People often assume that if their boss is a bully, like if they yell, if they are rude, if they set completely impossible deadlines, they think they can just go to HR and file a hostile work environment claim.
But employment law doesn't legislate basic human decency. Like being a jerk isn't actually illegal.
No, it's not. General bullying is not actionable. To trigger actual legal protection, the hostility has to be explicitly tied to a protected class.
So age, race, gender, religion, disability.
Exactly. If you go to HR and just say, my boss is bullying me, HR might investigate it, sure, but they'll likely just categorize it as a personality conflict. And crucially, if it's just a personality conflict, you have very little legal protection against retaliation if your boss decides to make your life even harder.
But if you go in and say, I am experiencing age-based discrimination, or I am being subjected to racial harassment, you have just invoked federal and state employment laws. You change the entire risk calculus for the company.
You absolutely do. You force them into a high liability compliance protocol. You have to use the specific legal terminology. But there is one major caveat to all of this.
What's that?
If HR or loss prevention ever pulls you into a room and accuses you of an actual crime, like stealing company hardware or corporate espionage, that is the one and only time you stop talking immediately.
Oh, definitely. Because at that point, they are basically acting as a private investigative arm. They'll tell you, hey, just admit to taking the laptops, and we can handle this internally and save your job.
And they are lying. Their only goal in that scenario is to secure a confession to limit their liability and then hand it over to the police on a silver platter.
Yeah.
In that scenario, you do not sign anything, you do not explain yourself, you need a criminal defense attorney, not an HR business partner.
Okay, so we've established the heavy artillery, the discipline, the legal survival, the really hostile scenarios. But if we analyze everyday IT culture, the most insidious problem isn't usually overt hostility. It's actually the exact opposite. It's the damage caused by managers who are completely terrified of conflict. The problem of being too nice.
Yes, the concept of anxious niceness. This is rooted in some really fascinating social psychology research, particularly the work of Dr. Tessa West. She studies the mechanics of uncomfortable workplace interactions. And she found that when human beings feel socially awkward,
Like when a manager has to tell a senior developer that their code architecture is just fundamentally flawed.
exactly, they rarely get mean. Instead, they default to this generic, over-the-top, anxious praise.
It is the useless code review of human interaction.
Yeah.
Somebody just stamps,
Yeah,
looks
that's
good
it.
on your pull request, but under the hood, there's a massive memory leak that is absolutely going to crash the entire system.
That is the perfect analogy. And the physiological tells of this anxious niceness are just wild to watch. If you look at a manager trying to give negative feedback but masking it with generic praise, their body language completely betrays them.
What do they do?
They avoid eye contact, they fidget constantly, they give these really tight, brittle smiles. Sometimes they literally pull their physical chair an inch or two away from the person they're talking to.
Wow.
Right.
And they just shower you with platitudes like, you are such a great team player. We really love your energy. Meanwhile, you learn absolutely nothing about how to actually improve your work.
But the mechanism of what is happening under the surface is what's truly terrifying here. West's research actually measured the physiology of two people in these specific interactions. The manager, who is lying to avoid conflict, experiences a massive spike in cortisol. Their heart rate is elevated. And because human beings have mirror neurons and we're highly attuned to social threat, the person receiving the feedback subconsciously detects this mismatch.
Oh, wow. So the manager is smiling and saying, you're doing great, but their body is screaming, I am in danger?
Exactly. And the receiver actually synchronizes with that panic. The receiver literally catches the manager's stress under the skin. Their own heart rate spikes, even while they're being showered with these fake compliments. It is a deeply, deeply unsettling experience for everyone involved.
And we really have to acknowledge who this hurts the most, because this doesn't hit everyone equally. The research shows that the people most often on the receiving end of this useless, anxious feedback are marginalized groups, women in tech, and racial minorities.
Because managers are so utterly terrified of appearing prejudiced or saying the wrong thing and causing an HR incident, that they completely overcorrect. They retreat into absolute safety. They become overwhelmingly nice, which deprives those specific employees of the critical, actionable feedback they need to actually fix their mistakes, improve their skills, and climb the corporate ladder.
It completely stalls their careers.
It does.
So how do we break that cycle? Because if you just go to your manager and say, hey, do you want to be nice to me? Or do you want to be honest? I mean, they're going to choose nice every single time. It is the path of least resistance.
You have to force them out of the generic zone by asking for dimensional feedback. You don't ask, how am I doing? You ask, what is one thing I should keep doing, and what is one thing I should please stop doing?
The keep doing and please stop framework, that's brilliant, because it lowers the emotional stakes. It implies that everyone has things to stop doing. It's just part of the process.
Right. And if they still try to give you generic corporate speak, like if they say, well, I just think you need to take a little more initiative, you cannot let them off the hook. You have to push for the behavioral replacement.
Because take more initiative usually just means do my job for me so I don't have to think about it.
Pretty much. So you drill down. You say, okay, I want to make sure I execute on that. What does taking more initiative actually look like in our specific workflow? You force them to say, don't wait for the QA team to flag the errors on Wednesday. Run the diagnostic script yourself on Tuesday morning and bring me the logs. You literally turn vague anxiety into tactical behavior.
I think that is the most actionable takeaway for anyone listening to this deep dive. Let's give you a script you can use tomorrow. The next time your Scrum Master or your product owner gives you vague, anxious praise, don't just smile and say thanks.
Definitely not.
You look at them and say, I really appreciate that. Looking ahead to our next sprint, what is one technical habit I should keep doing? And what is one communication habit I should stop doing? It will feel slightly uncomfortable for about 4 seconds, but it will unlock actual career growth.
It really builds the muscle of direct communication without triggering everyone's fight or flight response. You own your development rather than just waiting for an anxious manager to guess what you need.
So we have covered a massive amount of ground today. We decoded the incident response panic of the HR invite. We established that HR is a vital corporate shield, which is exactly why you monitor your happy hour intake. We gave you the tactical firewall of receipt-only, rebuttal to follow. And we broke down the physiology of anxious niceness.
The overarching theme here is that preparation neutralizes panic. When you understand the actual mechanisms of the corporate ecosystem, the legal realities, the psychological quirks, you stop feeling like a victim of a secretive HR machine, and you start operating as an informed professional.
But I want to leave you with a final, slightly provocative thought to mull over. We just spent a lot of time analyzing how pervasive social anxiety and conflict avoidance are in corporate culture. Managers are literally sweating through their shirts to avoid telling someone their slide deck is formatted poorly.
They really are.
So, is it possible that the terrifying blank HR team's invite isn't a malicious, calculated power play at all? What if that empty agenda is just a manager and an HR rep who are too socially awkward and too anxious to actually type the uncomfortable feedback into a calendar description?
Oh, that is an incredible reframe. The horror movie soundtrack playing in your head might really just be middle management's social anxiety.
Exactly. So the next time you get that ping, just take a deep breath, Gather your requirements, prepare your email follow-up, and remember that there's probably just a very awkward human being on the other side of that screen. We hope your next meeting is short, entirely drama-free, and that no one ever looks across the table and utters the phrase, "We've decided to move in a different direction."
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Catch you next time.